Today I'm back with another tier list, and unlike yesterday when we were looking at the best decks out of Obsidian Flames, today we're looking at the best cards from Obsidian Flames. So I'm not going to waste any time here. I basically just picked all the Pokemon EX, all the trainer cards, and some of the more playable non-EXs, and I'm just going to rank them all. If I wanted to do like the whole set, that would take way too long, and there'd be the F tier would just be full of bulk Pokemon. I already defined my tiers out, just so we don't have to go through explaining all that. If you want to make this tier list yourself, I'll leave the link in the description below, and make sure if you do to join my Discord to share it with me. I'd love to see what you think of this set. So first off, I have Ninetales here. Ninetales is interesting because they can do 90 put 90 damage counters on one of our opponent's bench Pokemon. So for that, I think that the card overall is it's not a super amazing effect, but it could be something you use in Zorobox. It is fire, so it does have a bit of support. So I'll put it in the below average tier, but I think you could see it being bumped up one. It's a pretty unique effect, and as long as the metagame is centered around evolving Pokemon, which it almost always will be with Pokemon EX around, then I think Ninetales has some sort of potential to see some play. Toedscruel is above average for sure. I'm not sure if it's good though, just because it doesn't really have great energy acceleration, and the attack basically needs energy acceleration to work. I'm kind of torn on this one. I'll put it in good because the ability does have a bit of a history of succeeding. Will it be any more than a support Pokemon like Espeon was? I'm not so sure. I think it needs a little bit more to have success as an attacker, but as long as Lost Box is in the format, the ability should at least be under consideration. Absol. Absol is pretty average to below average, honestly. I'll say Absol is better than Ninetales, but still not a great card. I definitely overrated it on my EX tier list video. I think that the first attack is pretty cool for controlling style decks, but control decks are very weak right now. I don't really see that changing just at all in the future. Brassius is sort of like Copycat. It's like a better Copycat, and Copycat has succeeded before in the past, but really hasn't in a long time, and I don't really think that's going to change. I think Brassius is another below average card. So now Charizard, easy S tier. Amazing energy acceleration, great attack, can enable all sorts of cool attackers, has a great typing right now. I think Clefable is above average. When we get the new Clefable from 151, I think we'll truly see this card's true potential. It gives the Clefairy deck a new option for like a bulkier attacker, which should bode well because the deck already has a pretty weak Lost Box matchup. And the new Clefable from 151 will make it be even better into single prizers. So I think that this definitely could go up. I still think the Clefairy deck will probably still be like a mid-tier deck at best, even after the 151 Clefable, but at least should be viable now. Cleffa is a very good card. I know a lot of people have been sort of dogging on Cleffa, but Cleffa, like the Snorlax from Vivid Voltage, was a very good card as long as it was legal. It saw play in a bunch of different archetypes, and it's basically that. It is easier to knock out, as it's levelable, searchable, and it's for retreat. So I think this card is very good, and the format's, I think, slowing down some, especially after a couple rotations from now. We'll be in a pretty slow metagame as long as Pokemon doesn't juice everything up with power creep. So I think that especially as time goes on, this card is going to get even better. Decidueye is pretty bad. Just like the ability is not very good. The attack is underpowered. So I don't think there's really a whole lot to add to that. Ice-Q, I'd say, is an average card. It does provide an interesting option for Chin-Pow decks for fire weakness, or just Excalibur decks in general. The attack is unique and can maybe allow for some locking strategies, but the only way I see it seeing success is maybe if like a grass deck does creep into relevancy, so those Chin-Pow decks won't be able to hit it for weakness. Oh, Gita, what do I do with you? Because Gita is it's a very cool card, one of the cards I'm most excited to experiment with, but cool doesn't necessarily mean good. So I'm really torn on what to do with Gita. I think Gita can't be much better than average, but also can't be much worse than average. I think Gita's probably near the top of average, but I could see it being bumped up. Just having energy acceleration like that is great, especially with very little restrictions, but the one restriction is really bad. That not being able to attack that turn, like very few decks in this current pretty fast format can afford losing a turn in the early game. So I think Gita, it'll be interesting to see where Gita settles. I could see it going up, but also it could be lower on here. Rita is simply awful. Houndoom is simply awful. Houndstone is better than those two fools, but is still not a very good card. I think it's better than Absol, but I don't think it's much better than that. Being able to for more psychic damage is pretty cool, but you're going to have a lot of psychic Pokemon down to be hitting those one-shots, and we already have an amazing psychic Pokemon in Gardevoir. Dragonite is another pretty bad Pokemon. I could see it being a lot better if we got something like Fliptini or Trick Coin or Glimwood Tangle that allows us to reflip coin flips. I know some people have played it in Japan in like a Lost in Box style deck because it has that mismatch energy cost that like Mirage Gate can really fuel up quickly. Except that the upside just really isn't there. Like, yes, it has synergy with that, but the attack just has very little actual value. And I can just play the regular Dragonite be on a basic, have Forest Seal synergy, and hits the same amount of damage most of the time. Togekiss, the ability is very cool if it was on a basic Pokemon, because being able to draw to you 8 in your hand after you attack is pretty nice. But it's susceptible to Iono, and it's on stage 2, so it requires a lot of setup. I don't really know why you'd play this stage 2 setup Pokemon when you can play this stage 2 setup Pokemon, so I think Togekiss is better than these clowns, but it's still pretty bad. King Gambit, I think, is above average. In a format where we're mostly in a multi-price format and there are very few single prizes, I could see King Gambit being very good. Or if King Gambit had a single price partner that could efficiently deal with other single pricers, then that would be pretty nice. But right now, as long as Lost in Box exists, things like United Wings exist that can just out-trade King Gambit, it's hard to see it succeeding. But as time goes on, I definitely could see this card seeing some play eventually. I think Cloth is above average too. That ability is very awesome, being able to discard energies. You can slap Bravery Charm on it. You can play Penny. I can see the future of Control going on without Absol. I can't really see Control progressing into a viable deck without Cloth being a central piece of that. Koraidon is simply awful as well. I think if we wanted to order these, it'd probably be something like that. But they're all pretty bad. Letter of Encouragement. So being able to search for energies is good, but also, I don't know, like what deck actually does it work in right now? Maybe something like Chin-Pao that wants lots of energies in their hand, but they already have the built-in ability. You have to wait to find it too. It's not like, always live. I think this card is just not very good. I think it's it's just below average. Like I can just play Energy Surge and have my energy all the time versus just having it on swing turns. Maybe there's a deck that wants to have all its energies in its hand eventually, like its attack throws energies back into the deck or something like that. I think Lunatone's pretty decent. I think it'll find a home eventually. It's just got to pretty much have the perfect card to pair with it that doesn't necessarily have to have benched Pokemon, and also has a stadium that really bothers it. I've seen some Japanese lists rocking it with Shadow Rider. You can play the Pokemon Go Soul Rock to accelerate energies to it, and be a Path deck too now, because you'll shut off the effect of Path to the Peak with your ability. Melmetal is pretty bad, but it's probably the best of this bunch. Miraidon is not very good. The only merit it has is a free retreating lightning Pokemon, which is something the other Miraidon deck, or the Miraidon deck is lacking. So I think it's like probably the very bottom of D tier, maybe even in F tier. It's really not that good. Ortega, I want to be good, and if you cut out that last text where you allow your opponent to draw a card, because you have to look at your hand, looking at your opponent's hand and take one of their cards away is awesome, but then giving them a card back really loses what momentum we had here. So I think Ortega is probably it's because like there's a Miss Magius from Astral Radiance that sort of does the same thing better, and you actually can pick your opponent's cards. I think Palafin's good. I think a single price deck in it for 210 for double water. I know some Japanese Lost Box lists have been incorporating this, so you can use like Raihan. You can like set up knockouts with Sableye. I don't think it will ever fully replace Lost Box, but I think it's an interesting new version to try out. Patrol Cap is horrible. There's no Mildex in format for this to block, so maybe in the future it becomes better, but I don't really see it. Palmot is pretty bad in a format where Manaphy exists and Bench Protection exists. I think it probably also is an F tier. It's not as bad as these clowns, but it's still not so good. Okay, Pidgeot, best card in the set. It's awesome being able to search for a card every single turn. Pretty much every deck that's already playing Rare Candy and doesn't have a great draw engine is going to be playing Pidgeot. League HQ is a good card. I don't think it's amazing, but it's good. And as long as there's a basic in format, come on, Dotscroll, get behind him. Dotscroll, thank you for cooperating. As long as there's a basic deck in format that likes to have its that gets bothered by this will be a solid card to have around. Poppy, I think Poppy, I think is average. That it's not an incredibly broken effect. Being able to move energies has always seemed to find some sort of utility in the Pokemon TCG. It's not always super broken, but like you saw Zoroark Dash for a while playing multi-switch. You see energy switch occasionally in decks. It would have to be a deck that likes moving its energies around and also has some draw engine where it doesn't mind having a supporter that doesn't draw cards for a turn. I think it will find a home eventually, but nothing really stands out immediately. Revavroom has a really cool ability, and there's a lot of cool 2 cards coming out on the horizon, but no energy acceleration really makes it hard to see this card being good. I'll generously put it up in average tier because I want to see it succeed, and I think if we got some good energy acceleration for it, it would be a pretty good card. The Revenge Punch. So Revenge Punch makes it so if the Pokemon it gets attached to is knocked out, you deal 4 damage counters to it. So it works well with the Kingambit, but just the 4 damage counters really isn't a whole lot. Maybe, I think it's probably a below average card, but I could see you bumping it up into average if you wanted to. Rhyme is another How, Charon, Hop. Being able to draw 3 cards, but having a switch effect too, which if you were able to choose, this card would be broken, but it's basically like a one-sided escape rope plus a draw 3, which it's okay, but I just hard to see this being a stable draw supporter. And like, yes, something like Bird Keeper did see a lot of success, but that was helping you switch, and it was a built-in like switching card that could help you draw 3. So I think Rhyme is pretty bad. But I think Rhyme's probably something like right here or here. Honestly, we'll put her right there for now. Glamora is definitely above average. I think, yeah, we'll put Glamora there. I think you could definitely make a case that it should be in good, but the damage output's kind of low. So if your ability doesn't necessarily work right, it doesn't really hinder your opponent can still come back because your damage output is a bit subpar. I think Scizor is above average too. We'll put it up next to Glamora. It has the same abilities as old Evil Admonition Weavile, and that's just been a pretty successful ability in the past. It's a new toy for Zorobox to play with, and hopefully when Lost Box leaves, we can see Zorobox succeed. But I guess when Lost Box rotates, so will Zorobox. So I guess we'll never see Zorobox succeed, which is a bit depressing. But I think this card will eventually find some sort of success. Mawile is being able to discard special energies has always been good historically with like things like Faba, Crushing Hammer, Enhanced Hammer. Team Flare Energy Denial is always pretty good. But on a Pokemon, if there's something like Scuba Net in format, oh man, this card would be pretty broken, but there's no way to pick it up. And having liabilities like this on the bench are never good when there's things like Radiant Greninja, Lost Mine. So I think right now, it's just simply there's not a home for it. It's probably here and below average, but I think that it could see some success potentially in the future if it gets some more help. The Town Department, I think is probably being able to search for a tool card is pretty good, especially when there's good tool cards like Forest Seal Stone that you don't want to be playing a ton of, but you still want to have access to, can serve as a path bump. Maybe Mew plays this because it basically gives you like a computer search as a stadium. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's terribly broken either, so we'll just stick it right there for now. This Trevenant, it has an ability that seems really cool on paper, being able to ping your opponent's damage counters once during Pokemon Checkup, but I think this will be too big, and your opponent will just knock these things out over and over again before the ability actually does anything. So it's above Greedent, it's above Koraidon. I'd probably put it like right here or something like that. Tyranitar, I want T-Tar to be good because Lightning isn't the worst type ever. You are hitting some pretty solid damage. There's just no great way to deal with single prizers, and you have and you're probably gonna be pretty inconsistent being a stage 2 deck and has to incorporate ways to damage its own Pokemon. So I think I want to put Tyranitar in average. I think if Revavroom is there, we probably put Tyranitar there as well. Tyranitar is better than Revavroom. Is it better than Lunatone? Is it better than... Alright, we'll stick it above Ice Cube just for the memes. Victini is below average. Having a way to hit 220 damage on a basic fire type is cool. Maybe you could see it incorporated as a one-of in a Charizard deck. We already have things like Entei and Delphox and Radiant Charizard that sort of do the same thing that Victini does. So it's hard to see it being too successful. Vespiquen is a unique one because the attack is pretty good. Being able to spread damage counters is always pretty good, but the energy acceleration, it's a very expensive attack, and there's like the energy acceleration options are there in Fortress and Cherrim, but I don't really think those are very good energy acceleration options. Fortress presents its own set of problems because you go behind on prizes, and you like think that you could combine that with Iono Path, but you don't want to be letting Path to the peak in a Fortress deck. So it sort of just makes a clunky deck, and if you're not being super aggressive, like only doing 200 damage, only 200, and you're giving your opponent a 2-prize head start, is definitely definitely not great. And also Cherrim is sort of clunky in its own way because you have to attach the energies to the Combies, and you can't you can't just evolve your Vespiquen right away, which could lead to some pretty awkward hands where you have Vespiquen EX in your hand, but you don't have the energies. So I think Vespiquen is probably near the top of below average, or like, okay, if we're just judging it in a vacuum with the card on paper, the card is it's probably just an average card in general. But like when you like actually put it on the table in this format, it probably slides down some. But we'll just put it in average for now. I want Whiscash to be good because I've always personally enjoyed messing around with mill decks, and I made a video on this card. I think it could be pretty funny. I think it gives an option for colors, so you get to deal with the Duraludon. But is it actually good? That's what we have to answer. It's either average or below average. I think it's probably here in below average. Because it has Koraidon, but that deck is still probably too memey to be any good. So as you can see, there's very few actually good cards in this set, only 11 that are above average. So yeah, Obsidian Flame is definitely sort of a stinker for competitive play. There are a few things that are good, but like if you did this exercise with Paldea Evolved, this list would be full of cards, and this only has 3. So what do you think of Obsidian Flames? What do you think of this tier list? I've said it many times before, I've been pretty disappointed with the overall card quality in this set, but oh well, they can all be good ones. So thank you guys for watching, taking the time out of your day to check out my video. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and join my Discord, and I'll have a link to the tier list in the description below, and thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.